You all are really in for a treat on this one. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through all of the handmade clothing of my sewing's past. And along the way, I'm going to share all of the sort of mindsets and strategies that I think are really great for when you're just starting out on sewing your own clothing. If we're just meeting, hi, I'm Leah, and I am an independent fashion designer for my own handmade clothing brand called Charlie Darwin Textiles. And I make 100% linen clothing that's all dyed with pigments from plants. It's really earthy and soft, and it's all made to measure. But I didn't grow this skill set overnight. And although my clothing looks really polished and finished and professional in its current state, it has not always been this way. It started out super duper duper ugly. Back when I was 13, I started trying to sew my own clothes, and it was absolutely atrocious. And so I can't wait to take you on the journey. And this is gonna be a very vulnerable video. I actually curled my hair a little bit and tried to look alive, because I'm gonna be trying on clothes today that are gonna make me look like an absolute baked potato. All right, strap yourself in and have fun on this beginner how-to pep talk and a super embarrassing fashion journey. So an important thing to remember when you're first getting started with any new thing in life is we all start really bad at literally everything we do, from eating to walking to driving a car. It starts so bad and so ugly, and so it's not going to be any different with clothing. Even if you think of yourself as a crafty, creative person, it's a raw skill that you've got to build up a little bit over time, and there is a little bit of a learning curve to it. So I think one of the best mindsets to take into making your own clothing from the start is just start ugly, start bad, and really just start super ridiculous. I think when you're trying to get better at a new skill, leaning into the ridiculousness is actually kind of a superpower. It's a it's a way to make it fun and get through those early stages of just like it's gonna turn out bad anyway. So leaning into just the ridiculously ugliness of the beginning stages of learning, I think is what is, that's fun. And it makes it so you don't take yourself too seriously in the process. Because I think if you take yourself too seriously, any little upsets you have at the beginning, they're gonna feel huge and they're gonna feel hard. But it's not that big of a deal. Just make something ugly and move on to your second piece. I started with clothes that already existed and just adding weird little edits to them and just sort of getting the hang of understanding fabrics and how fibers are woven together, understanding how thread connects to pieces of fabric, and maybe even more than thread. I probably have some hot glue and some patches on here, some iron-ons. And I was just really getting a hang of the touch and feel of fabric and how one thing can connect to the other. I did do all of this crazy patchwork on a home sewing machine, and these were just scraps of like old t-shirts and nightgowns and random costumes and things that I had that were probably like in a pile to go to Goodwill. All right, this bad boy was my second creation, and very similar to the first one, but you can see I have graduated into this lace-up situation, ladies and gentlemen. I believe I really had been getting experimental here. And I also was experimenting with some different like applique of shapes. National Physical Fitness Award. I think I got this for running the mile. It really has it all. This is actually a Barbie doll dress that I cut in half and just straight up put right onto the old torso, because Why not? Now, if you're wondering, yes, I did wear both of these shirts to school. And I remember this was probably like middle school, late middle school, and I remember a girl in the grade above me on the soccer team. Like I went to go get changed for soccer practice, and she was like, "Do you make your own clothes because you're poor?" And I was like, "Whoa. What a question." And I thought in my head, like, well, we are kind of poor, but I also just, I was not equipped at the time to answer the question. I'm sure I just blushed to death, but I was like, I don't know. I just make them for fun. And I think I just liked being able to express myself and wear whatever the hell I wanted to wear. And honestly, a little bit I think back, like we didn't have the money to be shopping at like Abercrombie and Aeropostale and Hollister, all the cool stores at the time. And so I felt like, well, my alternative options are to wear like knockoff clothes, which sure I did. But I also felt like, okay, if I can't wear the cool clothes, then I might as well just like make something way weirder that no one else can own. And so, yeah, I did. I wore both of these shirts to school every once in a while in middle school, and they were showstoppers, I'll tell you that much. Okay, you guys, you're not ready for this one. This one is a freaking showstopper, and I can't get the whole thing in the pic. Oh my God. So this is my mom's old nightgown, actually. And I don't know if it's showing up on camera just how like hacked together this bad boy is. But this is another example of me taking already existing clothing and just playing around with the shape and the form and cutting it and moving it around to different layout. So this is my mom's old nightgown, right? And this was just like sitting in our rag bag for many years. Like it's probably soaked up a few coffee spills and things like that. And I was like, hey, perfectly usable. I could use this for something. And so I pull it out, and my task was for myself to experiment with trying to make it cute. And of course, the nice thing about when you're editing previously existing clothes is you can kind of work with the seam finishes, meaning like this bound edge right here. You can kind of work with what's already there and just make some little tweaks to get it the way that you want. Hey, I don't know, that's pretty trendy, actually. Look at that. And if you're feeling self-conscious about how your early sewing looks, just enjoy whatever is happening here, where I'm just chunked fabric together and sewed over it. Okay, they just keep getting better. At some point, I decided I could up my game and start sewing my own clothes from scratch. So after you've played around with some clothes that have already been sewn up, you can start to think about, well, how can I make my own shapes? Or how can I use some beginner sewing patterns to piece together some fabric of my own. And I will say that before I got started on sewing my own clothing, I did play around a little bit with simpler shapes like bags. So when I was in maybe 8th grade, I took a family and consumer sciences class at school where we had to show that we could sew like a drawstring bag. Just playing around with something as simple as a rectangle to create a bag can really help you understand more about how to, first of all, cut straight lines in fabric, follow a grain line, and experiment with zigzag stitches and straight stitches, putting a cord into a channel, things like that, adding pockets. Just 2 little pockets on my bag here. So you might just want to start with experimenting with something simple like a bag or a pouch. Nothing that's too advanced. I wouldn't recommend anything with zippers. I think that would be too hard for a beginner. Uh, here's a real bonus for you all. A bag I made. Well, I thought it was so clever at the time. I found it on this was back in the day of Stumble Upon and early Pinterest, I think maybe. And I got this bag pattern online where this longer strap fits through this strap and you carry it like that. And I thought it was the coolest thing. But you can see even at this time, I'm using threads that don't even match my fabrics. And when you're thinking about what types of threads and fabrics to use as a total newbie, I remember back at this stage, I got most of my fabrics on clearance at Joann's, like when the clearance was on clearance, or I think some of it was technically like thrifted, just in that like I got it from, like scraps of things that my family wasn't using anymore. So maybe like upholstery that we were getting rid of, or old bed sheets and things like that. So consider it for your first projects, really just stick with fabrics that are thrifted or on the clearance rack. And throughout time, you can play around with different fabrics that you like using. But I generally recommend for beginners that you start with more like a natural fiber, like a cotton, a linen, ultimately just things that are not stretchy. I think it's important for when you're just starting out to not get too frustrated. Start with simple fabrics that aren't going to go anywhere and aren't going to clog up your sewing machine. Things like bed sheets are great, but maybe just give it a minute before you jump into anything that's like furry or has a lot of sequins or beads or what are other obnoxious things? Like a gauze or anything sheer, stretchy. The garment's going to turn out ugly no matter what. Just make sure you don't have a fabric that's easier to work with. Oh, and I also recommend that you get fabrics that can't be melted very easily. So things like slippery polyesters. If it seems like plasticky, like it might melt, then that's going to be no good for your first project, because I think ironing with a hot iron so you can really like press everything in place is going to help you a lot on your beginner sewing journey. Okay. Oh man. So this tube of a dress, which couldn't have fit me at the time because it's like big on me now. I don't know if I used a sewing pattern for this or how we got here, but I think this was one of my first things I tried putting together, and I thought, okay, I'm pretty sure this is just like a rectangle, and then like I made like a curve situation going up for the sleeve, which, this is a big step for a first project, but it is pretty much just a box around my body, and it's so ugly. It's so fun though that I just can see how much I was playing around with materials. I experimented here with making these fabric flowers. I think I also found these on the wild world of the internet at the time, and I'm pretty sure they are hot glued to the bodice here. So, you don't have to be above hot glue in the early stages. I certainly was not, and it looks like I knew it was too big, and I was just like, now there's a pleat here, and so I now have like a fun added pleat. I think this was me trying to figure out what like facing is. One shoulder was pretty trendy. I believe this is a vintage fabric that my mom had in a stash somewhere, and it's pretty cool. So I actually feel a little bit bad that I wasted it on such a ridiculous garment. All right, things got weirder. So I think after that first one, I was like, okay, I need to jump into sewing patterns. Like, I think I should have someone else show me how to do it. And this was very early stages of maybe indie pattern designers being on the internet. And so this was a digital pattern that I believe I printed out. I was always looking for free stuff at the early stages because, again, I knew things were going to turn out ugly anyway. And I was like 14, 13, so I didn't have that much money, but it never fit. I remember this like being in the closet for 100 years, and it was never fully finished. You can tell I'm working on some pleats here. I'm combining different fabric types. I tried like a stretchy knit jersey, and this other fabric was actually like the upholstery from curtains my mom had made back in the day. And here's a fun element is that I did add pockets, but they're all the way down here and I can barely reach them. So this was a big step. I experimented with pockets, I experimented with combining two different types of fabric, and I even was trying to do like these little clasp closures at the front, and looks like I did successfully add them, but I don't think if they were clasped, I don't think they would do the effect I was necessarily looking for. So yes, this was another flop, and I think maybe the pocket issue and a lot of the issues here come down to I had no idea at the time about how to edit things for my body height. So like the pockets being this low, maybe the person who made this pattern was making it for a really tall person, and I did not get the memo. Something I do want to note at this stage is that nothing needs to be finished. All of these projects that you start at the very beginning, they never need to leave your house. They never need to have the seams finished. You can if you get there, but if you get this far in the project and it looks this bad, like deeply bad, it's okay to just be like, this is trash. You don't have to finish it. The bottom hem of this dress is truly just unfinished raw edge, because I got to that stage in the making process and I thought, no, this is terrible. So that's okay. I have at least 15 dresses here that never got finished, that are just ridiculous, and that's the fun part. All right, we're almost in the territory of wearable items. There is a strange boob shape that's happening with this, as I decided to put a seam straight across. But here I was started to experiment with some like silky-ish, I'm sure it's a synthetic, but like a which just means it's not real silk from silkworms. It's like a polyester, poly version of a silky fabric, and honestly, that's pretty big of me to have been able to do that, because I think you can see these silky fabrics, they slip around a lot, and so keeping them straight under a sewing machine can be a little bit more challenging, and doing hems. And so I can see here I didn't even do a hem. I think probably, oh, I did a hem. I did do a hem. Okay. It's folded under, and then I did a decorative stitch on top. So at this stage, I started playing around with my sewing machine settings, seeing what it could do. These are a collection of the different stitches that my sewing machine could do, and I added them as sort of a decorative piece. So once you start getting the hang of shapes, and you can really start to move on to, well, what else can I do with my sewing machine beyond just the straight stitch? You might be surprised to see, especially if you have a newer, more modern machine, that there's a lot of stitch options that you could do and play around with. So here is the full look on this one. Not too bad. It's like a little bit of like a flowy, I think you call this a swing dress or something, I'm not sure. It's still pretty much just a boxy rectangle, but I do think that I got the pleats at least in the right locations. Here's the back. All right, about to get groovy on this next one. I actually experimented for the first time with dyeing. I think I maybe made this one like freshman year of high school, and I tie-dyed it, and it's like a stretch 100% cotton, I think, like a stretchy cotton fabric. So I'm experimenting even further here with that stretchy fabric, and I know for a fact I was not using the right needles or the correct settings on my sewing machine. I'm sure I absolutely suffered through this. It probably got kind of warped and stuff in some sections. And this was my first time experimenting, I believe, with adding a zipper to the back. So hopefully you can see that zipper that I added on the back. And I don't think I'd recommend to a beginner that you do your first zipper on a stretchy fabric. I don't even know. I don't think I could sew a zipper to stretch fabric today, to this day. That's not something I like specialize in, working with linen, and I don't really deal with stretch fabrics, but I wouldn't recommend it for total beginners. But also, I do recommend that you try things that are gonna flop. I probably broke so many sewing needles trying to add this zipper. But hey, this one was actually wearable. I do believe I wore this to my friend Ellie's house, and we did a photo shoot in her backyard. So before I ever knew, Charlie Darwin Textiles, my handmade clothing business today, it wasn't really like, it definitely was not uh, a formulated dream that I had back, especially when I was in high school. I knew I liked sewing and making and crafting and doing stuff with my hands. I loved doing art and painting. I had no idea where my life was going to go. And I had plans to pursue a career in science. And I also played soccer and tennis. So a very multi-passionate person. But I look back at this dress and it gives me memories of the very first time that I sewed, I think, like a fully finished to an extent garment that I dyed myself, which is pretty cool. This was just like a tie-dye kit that you can get from Walmart probably, or Joann's. And I wore it out in public and actually had someone take photos of me in it, which is very reminiscent of what I do today with my small clothing business. And so that was probably my first experience like posing clothing when I was about 14 or maybe 15 years old. But it's fun to look back, and I'm glad I kept this for that reason, that I kind of get to secure that memory inside. All right, this is an example of something that never got finished, but I can't even fully show it to you right now because it is not not attached up top. All right, this bad boy had some high hopes. I believe I started sewing this in hopes of wearing it to semi-formal, maybe sophomore year of high school. And I feel like I got pretty damn close to it being almost wearable. It didn't make it to semi-formal. I believe last minute I went to the mall like 3 days before and got this terribly shiny purple dress from Windsor. And anyway, I didn't actually give this one its time in the sun, but I used a sewing pattern for this one. And if you're thinking about sewing patterns as a beginner, I definitely recommend, once you think you might actually start wearing these clothes to something important or just out in public more, do start working with sewing patterns rather than just piecing stuff together. I think getting to know how people who are professional at sewing, how they combine fabrics and sew things together, and really starting to learn and practice that garment construction is going to be a big next step in your move through creating your own clothing. And the good thing about beginner sewing patterns is that they often have a lot of the terminology sort of explained for you. Not always, but it'll say things like what the bias means, and how to do certain types of hems. And at this point that you're watching this video, you're very lucky that there are a lot of digital sewing patterns online, even free ones. At the time that I was learning to sew, I was going through the books at Joann's, which are still there. And you can go through the catalog and pick out which sewing pattern you want, and then you have it right there as, you can buy the physical printed out pattern. At this stage, a funny detail is that I think I wanted to be able to make the bodice stand up, or like stay on my super flat chest. And so I think, you've seen dresses maybe before that have like kind of like a silicone piece right here, and I didn't want to buy that or stitch it on, so I just added like a line of hot glue across this top to help it sort of like stick better to my body. And it's actually just pretty scratchy, so I don't think I would recommend that, but if you're in a pinch, maybe. I think I was trying to add a bow in the center that kind of could cinch and like pop out and tie right here. Can you guys see? Did I do better on the invisible zipper this time? It doesn't seem like it's invisible, but I've got the zipper on there, and the bodice overall fits nice and snug. Woo. Okay, well, this one, I bailed. I don't remember what order I did these in. I might have done this before I learned how to do a zipper, or I decided zippers frickin' suck to put in. And I just went with a Velcro back tie. I think there's like a little tie situation up here. Oh, okay, the tie situation feels fully broken. This dress I was so excited about at the time that I made it. I think I might have used a sewing pattern for it, but I really loved the fabric, and it's my first time playing around with ruffles, and I think I just, for the first time, had gotten a shape that I thought looked decent on me. And this has the bottom hem finished, so that's how you know I thought it was good enough to keep working and get all the way to the end. I finished the bottom hem, and I remember wearing this dress. I'm a non-religious person at this point, but I wore this dress to Christmas Eve Mass, junior year of high school, and I felt like $1.5 million. This was I don't know. I mean, that tie-dye dress was cool and all, but I only wore it just to my friend's house for the photo shoot. This was probably my actual first time wearing a dress, like, in public without it being a statement of, like, I made this dress. I just was, like, you know, trying to blend in, like, yeah, thanks, I made it, you know, like, feeling all cool about it. And it needs a little bit of an ironing, guys. It's been in a bag for 17 years, so you can't blame it. All right, you guys are gonna love this one. This is a big exposure. Step back so you don't have to look so closely at my skin cells, but this bad boy was hit in the pool summer of 2010, maybe 2011. I experimented with making a bathing suit for the first time, and I also found out that yellow is not the color for my skin tone. I didn't even bother making bathing suit bottoms, just the top, and it was a real fringe kind of year. Like Shakira, we were big, me and my friends, we were big into Shakira, and like fringe was in, and so I actually have like beaded tassels on this bad boy, and I'm pretty sure it's just lined with like, I don't even know what kind of fabric it's lined with, but this was, again, you know me, I was clearance rack all the way, so this was clearance fabric, and I just did a simple tie in the back. And I think overall, I made this swimsuit as a craft project with one of my friends, and you know, we made it and we felt really proud of ourselves for it, but I also realized, you know, I don't think swimwear is the thing that's gonna take me to the moon. Oh. All right, now's the time in the video to talk a little bit about the learning curve, because it'll hit you square in the face. You will be sewing just trash after trash garment and laughing the whole way. And then at some point you're gonna say, I'm gonna take this a little bit more seriously. I want this one to turn out right. And don't put too much pressure on yourself, but I will say at some point the learning curve hit, and I really started to understand a lot of the sewing techniques that I needed to be able to just fully complete a garment that I would be really proud of. And I also think part of that learning curve was like starting to get the hang of patience and realizing that when you're sewing and or any sort of thing that requires craftsmanship, really starting to take your time with measuring yourself, your body, your fabrics, choosing the right fabric for the project at this point, choosing the matching thread at this point. and really coming up with what silhouette will look good on your body, thinking about what clothes you already own or you wish you owned, and curating maybe several photos from Pinterest and several ideas of maybe different sewing patterns to work off of, and taking it a little bit slower and ripping out your seams if they didn't go well and redoing them, and actually finishing your hemlines. So the learning curve will come. Don't expect it, all of this patience and wisdom to show up on your first or even eighth, 10th garment. But at some point, the learning curve hit me pretty well, and I decided to make my own prom dress. I believe this was for junior year of high school. And I even entered in like the Joann's. I don't know if they still do it, but Joann Fabrics had like a prom dress, make your own prom dress competition. Didn't win, didn't even get nominated for shit. But I think my prom dress turned out really pretty. It's a little bit like a wedding dress because it's white. But for someone who's very flat chested, it gave me a little bit of support for little my little guys here, and turned out to fit pretty well. I'll give you some detail shots of, I, for the first time, added like a beaded trim. I probably experimented with lace before, but I did lace with a lined bodice, and I believe I'd seen a dress very similar to this online, probably from like, I don't know, Free People or something, and I printed out the picture of the dress, and I think that year was gifted a dress form. So this little lady right here was the one who my junior year of high school actually got to wear the prom dress first. I fitted the prom dress to my dress form, and had my dress form all kind of to my correct measurements. Now you don't have to do that if you have a sewing pattern, but this, I think I kind of cobbled together a couple sewing patterns, and then adjusted to my own body measurements. But damn, yeah, I still feel like kind of like pretty. I feel pretty in this dress. I also felt pretty junior year of high school, and I remember my friends were so proud of me. Like, I didn't really plan on telling that many people that I made my dress, but my friends were so proud of me that every time, you go to prom and everyone's like, oh, I like your dress, and my friends were just, they were in it for me, and they were like, she made it, she made her dress, and they were so proud of me, and that made me even more proud of myself. I think hand making your clothes is so unusual. Everyone's just buying clothes now like on Amazon and just like fast, and they're cheapy, and they don't have a lot of like heart and soul put into them. But when you hand make your own clothes, when someone compliments it, it feels 100 times better. And people truly are impressed to see that you have made something with your own hands that somewhat fits you. So don't be afraid to wear it out in public. Once you feel like you got it, flaunt it. So sadly, after high school, going into college, and for the next few years after college, I took a bit of a hiatus from sewing my own clothing. I was doing other sewing projects for myself, friends, and family, but not so much dabbling in clothing. So that dress that I tried on last, that was sort of sealed up the last memory for my early stage sewing career. And I think it's important to note that I did take tons of time off between the sewing hobbies. So if you ever take a break from it, don't feel like it's a lost skill. I think I got to a certain point with sewing that I felt confident and secure enough in it. And I did keep sewing probably a couple times a year, random projects. But I didn't really pick up sewing again until probably 2019 or 2020, and I began taking sewing a lot more seriously. I had started a full-time job, and I wanted to just get back into it. I was dating my boyfriend for maybe a couple years, and he wanted a robe, and so I made him a linen robe for a sewing project, and it was crazy just how even doing a couple small sewing projects every year, and then all the way back to my sewing experience in high school, It was enough to really make a really sharp, professional, polished, all the seams finished linen robe for my boyfriend. And then I made one for myself and it turned out really nice. Then I started making them for friends. And then I thought I'm going to put it on Etsy because I already had an Etsy shop for some other paintings and stuff I'd been doing. So I put them on my Etsy and then I started to sell some and I started to realize, oh shit, I actually have to make these in the correct size when someone else orders it. So I had to learn sizing. And then from there, I had to learn how to make new designs past this linen robe. And I started with like a little two-piece romper that was really cute and this dress. And so this dress, one of the buttons has since broken because I remember I stepped on it very hard with a shoe one day on accident. But it's a linen dress that's really simple and I just modeled it off of something that I loved in my wardrobe. I had a dress that I had thrifted that I thought looked super cute on me and fit my body shape and type really well. And so I actually sort of just traced out and deconstructed that and made my own version of it in my linen. It was a cotton dress and I made it in linen. And this was one of the first things that I started selling on Charlie Darwin when it was just an Etsy page. And it's just a simple little linen sundress with a waist tie. And of course, all the seams were finished, but even at this very early stages of my business, I still didn't have a serger to serge the inside of the garment. They're all still raw seams. So a huge shout out to the brave people who purchased my very first Charlie Darwin garments. Probably the first 5 or so, maybe fewer, were just regular old homemade seams on the inside. I probably zigzag stitched them or something like that. But once I started realizing I think I could sell these clothes more professionally in a more professional capacity and grow my skills along the way, I decided to invest in a serger machine that helps finish the inside of the seams. And I started to invest a crap ton more time, pretty much full time, all of my life into learning. And because I wasn't trained in fashion design, I was trained in animal behavior in undergrad and then animals and public policy in my master's degree. So I had no formal training in fashion design. I actually just watched a crap ton of YouTube videos and tried out different sewing patterns to sort of hone my skills along the way. And that has taken me so far. There's so much information that you can find online. So if you're starting to sew your own clothes, the first stop is to just get that bug into your algorithm space, because once you start looking up these videos like this one, I am sure that you're just going to get fed more and more that are going to help you really tweak your skills along the way. I do think back to when I first started sewing, and it was a much simpler time in that, like, my resources on the internet were a lot more limited. And I wonder what it would be like to start learning how to sew today with everything that is explosively on the internet and most of it for free and just being fed to your scroll. And I think it must be really easy to get overwhelmed, almost like there's too many options of what you can do and what projects you can start with. So I'd recommend be open to new ideas, have a Pinterest board ready to go, but maybe just pick one at a time and really try that project one at a time. And I've been putting out some sewing patterns of my own, and I try and keep the beginner in mind to an extent on them. And so one you might try from my pattern collection is the pocket sewing pattern. This would be like a simple beginner bag. It doesn't have as much fit involved, which is really nice for a beginner, but it helps you learn some techniques like doing the binding around the edges, adding pockets, and adding buttons. and just overall cutting out the fabric and the shape of everything and adding a lining to something. So I think you might really enjoy that one. And that one has tons of options for you to practice embroidery or adding iron-ons or patchwork or anything fun and silly and ridiculous that you should be doing as a beginner. You can have a lot of fun with that and not use up too much fabric in the process. Now, pretty much everything that I make for my handmade clothing business today starts from a couple sewing patterns that I've constructed that fit my body really well and have withstood the test of time, of comfort and fit. And then I just tweak them in all sorts of different directions to get different design combinations. And I can add darts and overlaps and pleats and ruffles, and really it is infinite what you can do with just a few base sewing patterns that fit you well and sort of morph the designs over time into new shapes. If you want to really hone your skill in sewing your own wardrobe in maybe a shorter amount of time, I might recommend that you pick one type of fabric to sort of specialize in for yourself, because I do feel like going between a stretchy cotton knit jersey and a linen, it's a lot of like switching the parts on your sewing machine. It's a lot of learning different techniques and how the fabric works that I think is a little bit more difficult. Now, I only work with one type of fabric because that's sort of my business model, is that it's 100% linen fabric. But I also think that constraint and choosing one type of fabric to really specialize on has helped me grow my skill set in sewing a well-constructed garment a little bit faster, just because I can really focus all my energy on how to sew with linen specifically. So if there's a fabric type that you know you love to wear, I always recommend natural plant-based fibers for ecological reasons. They biodegrade quicker. But if there's a type of fabric that you really like working with, just try kind of committing to that fabric for a little bit. Once you've gotten further on in your journey and you've figured out which ones you like, commit to something for a few garments in a row, and I think that'll help you really build your skill up a little bit quicker because you're starting to understand that specific fabric a little bit better. Because of my clothing business, I have probably sewn 300 garments, and I am feeling very confident at this stage in my sewing skills, especially with linen specifically. But, I think it was probably around my 5th to 10th garment for a client, a customer through Darwin Textiles that I really could get all the way through it without using my seam ripper one time. And that was so exciting. That was like a huge day for me that I made it from start to finish and I didn't have to take out any of the seams. I didn't have any screw ups. And it's so worth the journey to get to that point. You're going to have to do a lot of seam ripping at the start, but once you get to that point, and you will get there, it feels so great. And, to this day, probably I've gone through at least 200 garments where I didn't have to just rip something out and be super pissed about it. So that is a huge feat. And you don't have to have a clothing business like me to feel that kind of accomplishment. You'll get there in your own wardrobe as you just keep fumbling through all of the silly stuff that starts at the beginning. All right, I hope you enjoyed this silly little fashion show and beginner tips and tricks for sewing your own clothing. Take it from me, I truly started as a beginner, as we all do. And it's been a joy to be vulnerable once again in front of you all and in front of this camera today, to show you the demons of my sewing past and look like a potato in front of this camera. I hope it's been fun and inspirational and a little bit of a silly little pep talk for you. I hope you make something special this week or this month, and please let me know if you do. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I want to hear from you in the comments which of the outfits that I tried on today was your favorite. It doesn't have to be the prettiest one, just your favorite, had the most spunk, personality, it had the most swag, jazziness? You know, which one? Which one was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. And of course, all the things. If you like this video, like it. If you didn't like it, buzz off and also still like it. And have a good rest of your week. Subscribe to get more videos like this in the future, because I like to have you here. Okay. All right. Bye.